The line NEOM. Imagine a single mirrored wall stretching 170 kilometers across the Saudi desert, taller than most skyscrapers, promising to house 9 million people. That was the line, part of the $500 billion NEOM megaproject, with the first phase alone carrying a price tag of around $320 billion. It was pitched as a car-free, zero-emissions community where everything you need is within 5 minutes, overseen by artificial intelligence. But by 2025, delays and cost overruns forced planners to slash the vision. Construction now centers on a 2.4-kilometer segment near the Oxagon port, and the initial population target has shrunk to about 300,000. The new focus is on industrial logistics rather than housing, far from the original utopian promise. The line shows that bold visions can capture the world's attention, but without solid logistics, financing, and labor, they collapse into scaled-down prototypes. Real cities need more than fancy renderings. They need practical plans and room to grow. Forest City, Malaysia. Picture a cluster of 4 man-made islands near Johor, Malaysia, marketed as a tropical eco-paradise for 700,000 people. Launched in 2016, Forest City promised waterfront condos, smart technology, and lush greenery. Developers spent billions building roads, parks, and shopping centers to international standards. Yet by 2025, only about 20,000 people lived there. Many apartments and malls sit empty, and most residents commute to jobs in Singapore or a nearby port. Sales plunged when China restricted overseas property purchases and Malaysia tightened visa rules. Chinese buyers had accounted for around 70% of demand. Environmental damage to mangroves and seagrass added controversy, and with no industrial jobs to anchor the economy, locals had little reason to relocate. Forest City shows that selling investment condos doesn't create a livable city. Without organic jobs and a diverse community, even the most luxurious megaproject can turn into a ghostly enclave. Its dream remains unfinished, and the silence of its empty streets speaks volumes. Masdar City, United Arab Emirates. Back in 2006, Abu Dhabi set out to build the world's first zero-carbon city and called it Masdar. With about $22 billion in funding, planners envisioned a home for 50,000 residents and 40,000 commuters, complete with solar-powered buildings and personal rapid transit pods gliding beneath its streets. The original timeline aimed for completion by 2016. Nearly 2 decades later, the results are more modest. Only about 15,000 people live and work in Masdar, and just 5,000 of them are permanent residents. The futuristic pod transit never expanded beyond a small prototype because it was too costly. Instead of a bustling eco-metropolis, Masdar has become a research hub for green technology, dotted with net-zero office buildings and a handful of apartments. Plans to finish the city have been pushed beyond 2030. Masdar's story shows that sustainable architecture alone doesn't create a livable city. Affordable housing, services, and a sense of community are just as important as solar panels and smart pods. Songdo International Business District, South Korea. 2 decades ago, South Korea set out to build Songdo on reclaimed land near Incheon, a model smart city wired with sensors and pneumatic waste tubes and run from a central control room. The project cost more than $40 billion, and planners imagined millions of residents living in a high-tech utopia. By 2024, however, only around 210,000 people call Songdo home, more than many expected but still far short of the original vision. Visitors often find the city sterile and inflexible. Sociologists say its design prioritized control and efficiency over spontaneity and culture. High living costs and a shortage of parks, museums, and neighborhood businesses kept many families away, and some planned projects remain unfinished. Songdo shows that smart infrastructure alone doesn't bring a city to life. Without affordable housing, vibrant cultural spaces, and the messy energy of real communities, even the most advanced urban experiment can feel more like a giant office park than a place to belong. Xiong'an New Area, China. In 2017, China announced Xiong'an New Area as a city of the future, designed to relieve Beijing's overcrowding and rival Shenzhen. The plan aimed to relocate millions of people into brand-new green neighborhoods linked by high-speed rail, creating a sustainable megacity. By 2024, however, census data showed only about 1.36 million residents, up slightly from 1.205 million in 2020, and most were already living in the area's 3 existing counties. Even with high-speed trains and gleaming new roads, the new area remains largely rural and quiet. Officials still talk about reaching a population of 5 million by 2035, but despite massive investment and relocation orders, few Beijing residents have chosen to move there. Forced relocations and top-down planning can't easily conjure urban life. People go where jobs, affordable homes, and community networks exist, not where bureaucrats point. Zhong'an teaches us that megaplans alone don't create vibrant cities. They need to grow around real economic opportunities and the choices of those who will live there. Echo Atlantic, Nigeria. Right off the coast of Lagos, Nigeria set out to build the Echo Atlantic on land reclaimed from the ocean, protected by an 8.5-kilometer seawall. Planners envisioned a modern financial hub with gleaming skyscrapers, housing 250,000 residents and drawing 150,000 commuters each day. By mid-2025, however, only about 6.5 million square meters of land had been reclaimed and just a handful of towers had been completed. Its developers marketed it as Africa's answer to Dubai, but the reality so far is more empty land than a thriving community. Luxury property prices and exclusive infrastructure limit the project's appeal. Most Lagos residents still lack basic utilities, while Echo Atlantic remains sparsely populated. Critics argue that building a walled enclave for the wealthy diverts resources from existing neighborhoods and even accelerates coastal erosion around the city. The timeline keeps shifting, and despite heavy marketing, interest from businesses and residents remains low. Echo Atlantic shows that when megacities cater primarily to investors, they risk deepening inequality instead of creating inclusive, resilient communities. King Abdullah Economic City, Saudi Arabia. In 2005, Saudi Arabia unveiled King Abdullah Economic City on the Red Sea, a planned metropolis meant to house 2 million people and serve as a major logistics and manufacturing hub. The project was part of the kingdom's drive to diversify its economy, but high property prices made it unaffordable for most Saudis, and housing and amenities were built for upscale buyers rather than middle-income families. Even with its sprawling port and free trade zone, 2 decades later only about 10,000 residents live there, and roughly 100 companies operate, far below the plan for millions. High property prices, limited job creation, and competition from newer Saudi projects like NEOM have siphoned attention and resources. Instead of a thriving city, CAC functions more like a free trade zone and industrial park anchored by its port. Building a metropolis without a clear economic engine or affordable housing leaves districts underoccupied and hollow. KAX shows that big plans need a solid foundation of jobs and livability to attract residents. Tolosa, United States. In 2021, entrepreneur Mark Lohr unveiled Tolosa, a plan to build a 5 million-person city somewhere in the U.S. desert. Lohr's vision centered on equitism, shared land ownership, renewable energy, and walkable 15-minute neighborhoods, with a promise to invest $25 billion of his own money. Renderings showed sustainable skyscrapers, perfect public transit, and endless parks mixed with affordable and luxury housing. By 2025, Tolosa remains just an idea. No site, no funding for the initial 50,000-person phase, and no foundations poured. Critics ask why build a massive city in a water-scarce desert and how you achieve equality when it depends on a billionaire's financing. They note that most planned U.S. cities struggle to attract even a few thousand residents. 5 million is fantasy. Tolosa shows that utopian visions can be more marketing than reality. Real cities grow around jobs, homes, and communities, not grand promises. Ordos, Kangbashi, China. In the early 2000s, images of Ordos's Kangbashi district filled the internet, showing empty skyscrapers and deserted plazas. The city was built from scratch in Inner Mongolia's coal-rich Ordos region, but early on, only about 30,000 people lived there. International media branded it a ghost city. Many predicted it would never fill up. Yet by 2017, the population had grown to 153,000 and has continued to rise as businesses and government offices moved in. More apartments filled as local employers relocated. New cultural and commercial activities followed. Northern Ordos planners built enough homes for hundreds of thousands, but demand didn't materialize until the local government relocated offices and industries. Kangbashi teaches that labeling a new city a failure too soon can be premature. Some planned cities need time to find their footing. Though it is still sparsely populated by Chinese standards, Kongbashi's story complicates the narrative that all new planned cities are doomed to emptiness. It's a reminder that context and patience matter in judging large urban experiments.